In the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, the city of St. Paul, Minnesota takes time out to celebrate Abortion Providers Appreciation Day. Plus, by all accounts, the Trump administration is doing a pretty good job protecting and informing Americans about the threats of the coronavirus. So, why are the globalists and their pals in the media trying to whip us all up against Donald Trump? All that and more tonight from the editor's desk. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Matt coming to you once again from the offices of the Remnant newspaper. Yes, that's right, you heard it here first. Sleepy little Catholic St. Paul, established in 1841, when the Roman Catholic priest, Father Lucian Galtier, built a log cabin chapel dedicated to St. Paul right here along the banks of the Mississippi River. This is my home. It's where I was baptized. It's also home to a rich Catholic heritage with once thriving Catholic churches and schools. And now we're celebrating abortion providers, just 50 years after the close of the Second Vatican Council. You just can't make this stuff up, you know? Mm-hmm. The city council now in St. Paul, Minnesota, made up of 7 Democrats, by the way, votes unanimously to designate March 10th as Abortion Providers Appreciation Day, and with the mayor of our twin city across the river proclaiming the very same thing.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey has proclaimed March 10th as Abortion Provider Appreciation Day.
We just can't allow ourselves to get used to this. You know, I mean, it's no wonder that the coronavirus now has landed here in sleepy little flyover land as well, because we're keeping right up with the big boys, you know? And the virus is here. It's scaring the living hell out of everyone, because maybe everybody has this sense that if there is a God, he's not going to put up with this much longer. You know, we're really pushing it now. We're begging for chastisement. And folks are scared. You know, my wife went into the grocery store yesterday to discover that there'd been a run on toilet paper, of all things. Because apparently toilet paper, for the most part, is also Chinese-made, manufactured, and imported to our country. And there's a certain irony in this. You know, the shelves are empty of toilet paper. In the middle of the apparent apocalypse that we're all living through, our first concern as enlightened citizens of the new world is not how to wipe the filth out of our souls, but rather how to wipe the filth off our bottoms, to be quite blunt and frank. I mean, that pretty much says it all. Whom the gods would destroy, they would first make mad, and we're going mad, and that's obvious. So I'm not going to sit up here tonight and try to pretend like I'm the expert, that I know all the ins and outs of what's going on here, because I don't. But I've sensed that what's happening now, as we all begin to expect and anticipate that our good Lord is going to intervene soon, that we're all trying to figure out what's going on, where we stand on the timeline of history, what's going to happen next, how much of this is conspiracy, how much of this is real, how much of this is media spin. And what I want, once again, is what I think is so important as we stand here again together behind these enemy lines in occupied territory. Don't turn on each other. Don't turn on your traditional Catholic friends and brothers and sisters, you know, who are also frightened, who are also trying to figure this out. All of us need to be patient. None of us know exactly what's going on. And we need to try to find out what's going on. And that's kind of what we're going to just talk briefly about tonight, with the hope and prayer that we can stay together again, you know, and be constructive as this thing now unfolds that none of us are fully understanding. And let's face it has given us all pause.
The European Union failed to take the same precautions and restrict travel from China and other hotspots. As a result, a large number of new clusters in the United States were seeded by travelers from Europe. After consulting with our top government health professionals, I have decided to take several strong but necessary actions to protect the health and well-being of all Americans. To keep new cases from entering our shores, we will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days.
This is scary stuff. So I want to start by saying we get it. It's scary. But what are we going to do? We can't just give up. We can't turn on each other. We can't panic. We all agree on that. So what's happening? What is this? Some say that the coronavirus is some sort of germ warfare, that China has released the thing on purpose. Could be. I'm certainly not going to pose as an expert there and to say it's impossible. China's doing a lot of really weird things right now, including coming to dominate and own most of our country one way or another. It's a little frightening to have communist Chinese dominating us like that. And we're going to talk about that tonight, the globalist impact of all this. Other people look at the coronavirus pandemic, and that's what it is, and they say it's a plague sent from God. Do you blame them? I don't blame them. Not if you believe in the Bible, that God certainly intervened and sent plagues plenty of time in the past. And if there's any society that's richly deserving of a biblical plague, it's ours. Look, we're sitting here in St. Paul, Minnesota, flyover land, USA, celebrating Abortion Providers Day. Yeah, I think people of faith had better anticipate that at some point here, God's going to intervene. And I've got good friends who are intelligent historians, people with good Catholic character, who are saying, yeah, this looks like it could be the beginning of something. And as people of faith, as Roman Catholics, Christians, followers of Christ, we need to be open to that possibility. But we also need to strategize and make sure we do the best to be constructive at this time to help ourselves, help our children, help others, maybe even save some lives by reducing the panic that the media, at least to some degree, seem to want to instill and incite. Other people argue about this pandemic, as I do, that the virus is just really, really bad and very serious, but not substantially more deadly than the influenza. And there are some doctors and experts out there who are saying this, and here's an example of one of them.
So you've seen pandemics over the decades. Yes. How does this one compare with everything?
A bad flu season is 80,000 dead. We've got about 18,000 dead from influenza this year. We have 100 from corona. Mm-hmm. Which should you be worried about, influenza or corona? 100 versus 18,000. Right. It's not a trick question. And look, everything that's going on with the New York cleaning the subways and everyone using Clorox wipes and get your flu shot, which should be the other message, that's good. Yeah. That's a good thing. So I have no problem with the behaviors. What I have a problem with is the panic and the fact that businesses are getting destroyed and people's lives are being upended, not by the virus, but by the panic. The panic must stop. And the press, they really somehow need to be held accountable because they are hurting people.
So where do you think the panic started? Like, what besides the press? Like, what was the impetus in terms of mass hysteria? In your opinion?
I saw it. There's a footage of me on a show called The Daily Blast Live a month ago going, shouldn't we be scared about this? And me going, no, there's going to be this potential for panic here. Right. Shut up, everybody. Stop talking about it. I could see the panic brewing. And I could just see it the way the innuendo and the every opportunity for drama by the press was twisted in that direction.
So what are we looking at here? At least in part, it appears to be the weaponization of a crisis. This is what Rahm Emanuel famously said: "Never let a crisis go by without taking advantage of it." So there could be, obviously, there seems to be something very serious about this pandemic in a sort of in a medical way, a health hazard way. And I don't want to deny that in the least. It also could be that the media are simply doing what they always do. They're looking for ratings. So that if they can scare the heck out of us, we are going to be glued to the screens every night to find out how much longer we have to live, right? That's a very real possibility. We know what's going on. This is great for ratings. CNN has been in the toilet for a long time. The ratings are picking up a little bit now because they know they got something now. We're scared. So we have to allow for that possibility. In other words, there's not one perfect theory here, one conspiracy that explains everything. We need to stay away from that sort of thinking. People talk about, the politicization of this thing. Well, that's not just an American phenomenon. In Italy, this pandemic could have been slowed way down if the ridiculous coalition government of Mr. Conte had listened to Mr. Salvini, Matteo Salvini, the leader of the Populist Party, who the European Union, turned on and destroyed. What was he saying in early January? He was saying, here's an idea. Let's make sure we don't let Chinese aircraft come in from China into Italy and bring the virus. Well, what did they do in the government? What did the Conte government do? What did the folks in the media do? They shot Salvini down as a fascist and a hater. So this thing is being politicized. If they had listened to Salvini, who knows? The situation in Italy is disastrous. And those of you who have traveled there know their health system is a disaster. Their politics are crazy. It's like something out of a Fellini film at this point. They can't even hold elections in a timely fashion. They are politicizing this whole thing. They certainly started out politicizing it. And there's a reason why the crisis is worse, the pandemic is worse in Italy because of some of this stuff. So there's no point in any of us denying that this is being weaponized on both sides of the Atlantic. Even though it's a serious crisis, it's being weaponized in order to achieve a desired political outcome, right? I think we can all agree that some people will stoop just that low. People in media, people in politics, they don't care about the common good. They don't care about the people. They just want to get their end. They want to achieve their end. And this is a very convenient time for them, especially those who hate Trump. They will do anything at this point to derail this man because he's doing too much good, And at this point, I mean, my goodness, would anybody be comfortable with the idea in the middle of a pandemic? Please God, it's long gone by the time the election comes along. But let's say it's not. Would you be comfortable turning a global pandemic over to Joe Biden to handle? I mean, the man is clearly hiding his own Easter eggs at this point. I don't think anybody would be comfortable with that, right? So we all kind of have a vested interest in making sure that the Trump team continues to go, because the reality is he's put a lot of money into this. There was only, I think, one death from the coronavirus when he dropped $1 billion budget onto it. He assigned his vice president to take over. What more can this man do? Do people want the draconian measures of communist China to kick in here in the United States? I mean, he can't do much more than he's doing. So why are they all blaming him in the media?
At times like these, it is imperative that the president be explicit, specific, and accurate. One could use the word honest.
Whatever you think of the coronavirus, we can all agree that the crisis is being politicized. Okay, let's start with that. The question then comes up, what do we do? And what do we do about it? What's the next step? First of all, we don't get sucked in. And we've been trying to do this on the Remnant website, remnantnewspaper.com. Don't get sucked in. And people are almost offended. Hey, you're not as offended. You're not as terrified of this virus as I am. What's the matter with you? You need to be quaking as much as I do. Well, that's ridiculous. We need to calm down. Take a breath, and think this through. Don't get sucked in. Don't let the media manipulation work its magic on you. It's diabolic magic on you. You got to do our own thinking now, which means we probably have to turn off most of the cable news stations, right? We need to be smart, and we need to read between the lines about what's really going on so we can understand, and be part of a strategy, part of the right side in dealing with this whole thing. So first off, what can we learn? We can learn that this situation teaches us exactly how vulnerable we as a society have become. This is a very important point. Somebody apparently just gives an order. The media, they fire up their teleprompters, and we're all supposed to react on cue and exactly in the same fashion as they tell us to do. And they do this all the time. They did the same. They use the same method, the same tactics to induce us all to accept little things like gay marriage and gender ideology. They fired up the media. They told us what everybody else was believing. They said, if you don't believe this, you're out of it. You're a dangerous person. You're a hater. And most people fell for it. Got to be careful of this strategy of theirs, which is very effective. Now, at this point, we're all doing what we're told, and we do it globally, and we do it simultaneously, and this should scare the hell out of us all. Okay? What else are we learning from this pandemic, this situation? We are also sadly learning that the Catholic Church, the modern Catholic Church, is no longer either mother or protector for her children, for her sheep. You see, starting with the Pope himself now, what did we see? That when the pandemic hit and when it started to get bad and get a little scary, the people were deprived of the Mass and the sacraments by this new church. The shepherd took off. So moving forward in this sort of modern shadow of death that we're going into, this valley of death, the first ones to head for the tall grass are going to be the shepherds?
È un po' strana questa preghiera dell'Angelus di oggi, col Papa ingabbiato nella biblioteca, ma io vi vedo, vi sono vicino.
Already in Italy, they are stopping confessions in many churches. Imagine now, as you begin to fear for your life, that you might contract a disease, that you might get sick, or that your elderly parents might get sick, that they won't have access to confession. See, this is what we can learn from this crisis, embrace for. Not so much just to save our skins, but to learn what society is going to look like if it keeps going like this, and if the sort of globalist regime is empowered to take over our lives like this. They're going to be telling the church now what to do in the middle of a plague. They're going to be telling the church that you can't go to confession anymore. And the church is going to comply with this? What we're witnessing right now, especially in Italy, it's like a test run of the international police state, standing in the place where Mother Church used to stand. So this is more important than just worrying about washing our hands and worrying about staying safe and healthy during a flu season, which is very important. Take the right proper steps, by the way. But what we're learning from this is much larger, much more important, and we need to talk about it. You see, because it wasn't very long ago when the Catholic Church took charge of the pandemic, right? Took charge of the plague, took charge of the situation. Remember? I can barely remember, as somebody my age. It wasn't that long ago, though, when hospitals were full of Catholic nuns who, believe you me, kept the lights on all night long for the suffering people, for the people that needed Mother Church when they were at the lowest point in their lives, right? Today, those beautiful nursing nuns are mere ghosts of the past, ghosts of a church that's been driven into the ground by the same modernist globalist bureaucrats that are running the church in Rome today. It wasn't that long ago when armies of priests were with us to bring the body of Christ, to bring the consolation of the sacraments of penance and extreme unction to whole hospital wards, to whole cities, whole towns, whole districts of people who were terrified for their lives by plague and pestilence. Remember? The churches themselves, the physical structure of the church was a home. You want to know why people built magnificent structures like Notre Dame de Chartres in France? You want to know why they so lovingly built it, put all their resources, all their money, all their time for 100 years into building it? You want to know why? Because that's where they went in times like these. Literally into the bosom of Mother Church, behind the protecting walls of Mother Church. The churches themselves were sanctuaries, always open, providing sanctuary in times of war, famine, plague. And now today, when we have a virus that's running across the globe, the doors of the churches are locked, the masses are canceled, priests, bishops are waiting instructions from their secularist overlords on what to do with the faithful, what to do with the dying sheep. You see what we're learning from this? You see what the Second Vatican Council, the modernist revolution, what it has wrought? The chaos, the demonic chaos, the abandonment of the sheep. The coronavirus pandemic has also exposed something else. Something we'll maybe close on this because it's a little more hopeful. that the devil, the forces of hell, are not going to always call the shots. That there's chaos in hell. And this coronavirus pandemic has exposed the fraud of the modern social justice causes, hasn't it? Where are the little transvestites in the library reading to the children? Where are they right now? Where are the stories about them and their plight because they're so misunderstood? No one cares about that. How about the global climate change crowd? Where is AOC? Warning us that in 12 years we're going to burn down, right? Where is she? Nobody cares about AOC at times like this. Why? Because her cause is fake, and it doesn't really matter. It's orchestrated by the media. Those are terrors for children in peaceful times. That's the only time they can roll this rot out, when everyone's fairly content, fairly peaceful, fairly happy. And they come in and try to manufacture the panic, you see? But it's ridiculous to even mention this stuff when real people are worrying about real life and death issues, like a virus that's killing people. And so the little stupid faux liberal causes disappear into thin air because nobody cares. And then you've got globalism itself. Where is Francis right now with his everything is connected bit? Eh? Where is he with that? How about his build bridges, not walls slogans? How about that? He's kind of silent. Where is the Pope? And all of a sudden, by the way, walls are looking pretty good, aren't they? Walls are being thrown up all over the place right now. People are demanding more walls, and more walls, in fact. Why? Because walls work. And like national borders, walls save lives. And one wonders, where is George Soros and his free and open society these days? During this pandemic, George has been pretty quiet, and so has Jorge, and so has Jeff Sachs, and so has Bono. And all these little fellows. You know, Francis, hiding out in his papal libraries as the Italian police patrol his city and make sure that national quarantine laws are strictly enforced. How's that globalism working out so far, Holiness? In the middle of a pandemic, it's kind of lethal. It's kind of deadly, isn't it? What about it, Jeff Sachs? Where are you guys with your anti-nationalist, anti-borders, anti-Trump garbage right now? You seem kind of quiet. Crickets coming from your quarters, in fact. But the pandemic must be Trump's fault, right? Here it comes. And this is what we want to talk about. This is what's been happening in the media. Well, what are we going to do? Must be Trump. Let's take this opportunity to take this crisis. Let's blame it on Donald Trump. That's what we should do. The guy who doesn't like globalism particularly much. Because Trump, he got... It's so ironic when you think about the fact that what's really, really irritating them, what's infuriating them, are things like Trump getting us out of the insane Paris Climate Accord, which cost the globalists millions of dollars in lost revenue and power and control over us all. What else has Trump done? Trump is securing the U.S. border. That's a huge problem. He's imposing tariffs on China. Oh my goodness, what a problem there. And he's also trying to overcome the neocon deep state and get the U.S. out of these endless, stupid foreign wars that only promote more globalist destabilization, right? Trump's not a warmonger. Have you noticed this? We're not going to war every week. We seem to be pulling out and trying hard to get out of Syria, out of Afghanistan, right? He's trying, but the swamp and the deep state are getting in the way. But he's still trying, and that's why they hate him. And they also hate him, of course, as we've talked about before, because Trump is siding with pro-life Christians who believe in God, who believe in large families, who believe in self-reliance and small government. You know, the stuff that the globalists have spent decades trying to eradicate from the face of the earth. That's why they hate Trump. That's why they're trying to blame Trump, because his doctrine from the beginning has been to get our country out of this entangled madness where we can't even feed ourselves anymore, much less produce our own life-saving antibiotics and medicines. I mean, are you worried about a run on toilet paper? Seriously? Forget about that, because we're setting up for a run on about 95% of our antibiotics and our drugs in the future, right now and in the future, which are manufactured solely by China. You see the problem? And what is Trump's crime? He says we need to stop being dependent on China for life-saving drugs. You got a problem with that? You really want to be dependent on China for this sort of thing? So again, what exactly has this man done other than try to make our country strong and independent from the New World Order? Strong enough to survive without the by your leave of communist China and the rest of the New World Order wackos. That's what he's done. And that's why we have to be careful that the mainstream media, especially on the left, obviously do not use this crisis to derail Trump and make sure he doesn't get elected in November. You see, that's our concern, that even though the virus is real and people are going to get sick, we're all probably going to get it. It's going to be around for a long time, if not forever, that we can't allow ourselves to be sort of sucked in to this process to use this crisis to derail this guy, because it's important that Trump wins. It really is. And this moment then is kind of our, as I say, I'll close on a positive note. This is kind of our Tower of Babel moment, if you think about it. Everybody's in chaos. Everybody's in panic. Everybody's scared. Everything's falling apart, right? And what people want is they want a country. They want a country of their own. They want their own medicines at a time like this. They're beginning to see, holy cow, this isn't working. This is frightening. Our medicines are coming from China? Really? This is a good thing? They're sending us diseases and they control our medicines? You know, our toilet paper, for heaven's sakes, is being manufactured and brought in from China. Did you realize how bad it is? How we've been taken over? We've been being slowly taken over by this. And there's Trump saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we should take our country back. And you got a problem with that. No, you don't. If you really think it through, you actually don't. I think you'd feel much more safe if America could sustain herself, protect herself, feed herself, medicate herself. Wouldn't you? Because only a madman would want anything else. Trump was right. Let's make our country great, by making ourselves self-sufficient again and independent from this madness. So yeah, people are really afraid, understandably afraid right now, because the pro-globalist media are whipping them up into a frenzy. And with any luck, the mob will panic, any luck from their point of view, the mob will panic, lose control, and once again start calling for the head of the king, in this case, King Trump. It worked beautifully in 1789, it worked in 1917, it's worked many times in the past, and it's going to work again now if cooler, Christian, American heads don't prevail. And here's the closing shot. Here's the good news. You're not going to die from this virus. Most likely you're not going to. Thank God for that. Pray for those who will be affected, but thank God the vast majority of us are not going to be wiped out by this virus, even if we contract it. It's a bad one, and we might all get it, but the vast majority of us who do will also get better. Keep that in mind as we confront other problems, huge problems in our society. Keep calm. Yes, wash your hands. Check out travel advisories before you fly. Be smart. Say your prayers and don't panic. This will not only save lives, but it will also prevent economic collapse and a lot of other bad things from happening to our society. We have a right to fight for this. We have a right to strategize on how we're going to be part of the solution, not the problem. The New World Order and its globalists are not going to save us, friends, because they are the cause of this. They are the problem. God help us, the Pope is not going to save us, because for whatever reason he has lost his way. God, family, country, and common sense, this is what's going to save us. So let's count on them, and only them, and let us do what Christians have always done in times like these. Let's place ourselves in the hands of our mother, the Mother of God, the Star of the Sea, who, as our forefathers called her, Star of Heaven, that nourished the Lord and drove away the plague of death which the first parents of man brought into the world. Let us pray then, as they did. May this bright star, Our Lady, now vouchsafe to extinguish this foul constellation whose battles have slain the people with the wound of death. O most pious Star of the Sea, preserve us from pestilence. Hear us, O Lady, for thy Son honors thee by denying thee nothing. Save us, O Jesus, for whom thy Virgin Mother supplicates thee. God bless you, friends. Stay healthy. Go to confession. For God's sake, unite the clans and keep the faith. I'm Michael Matt. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.